you have such serious charges, an aggravated burglary and manslaughter. You could be held, let's see, do you know your expiration date for those?
Uh, for my manslaughter is in 2032, and the other one is no, the other one's a 5 to life.
So is that what you want, is to be incarcerated until? Well, your aggravated burglary, that was a first degree felony. The expiration date is 2117. Is that what you want in your life? Is to stay here?
Two people in Orem have pleaded guilty to reduced charges in a gang-related burglary and killing. Braden Marshall and Maria Hernandez pleaded guilty to aggravated burglary and manslaughter for the shooting death of Gustavo Ramirez. Investigators say the pair were part of a group that took a box of cash from the Ramirez's home. Hernandez will be sentenced next month, and Marshall will be sentenced in January.
Now, please allow me to tell you something that is probably going to surprise you. You see, this parole hearing is not for that first degree burglary, which was really a home invasion and murder and robbery of a rival alleged gang member. No, see, she's already been paroled for those actions. This hearing is a parole hearing because she's come back to prison since then. You can't make it up. Yes, she was involved directly in the murder of a man. She only served 6 years for it, got out, and now is back in prison having another parole hearing. That's the state of Utah for you. You can't make it up. I would have never guessed that Utah was this lenient on crime, and that's because their sentencing, their guidelines, it's all just a big gimmick. It's all just a big way to gaslight its own constituency. But now you know. Anyways, let's jump into her second bite at the apple, her second parole hearing, and I'll share unpacking of the original crime and the results of this hearing at the end.
Today is Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. This is the date set for a parole violation and original hearing for Maria Guadalupe Hernandez, offender number 235242. Is that you, ma'am?
Yes.
Well, good morning.
Morning.
My name's Dan Bacavoy. I'm a member of the Board of Pardons and Parole, and I've been asked to conduct your hearing today. I need to swear you in. Could you go ahead and raise your right hand, please?
Sorry.
Yeah. Do you promise to tell the truth and
Yes.
be accurate today?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You can put your hand down. We have about 20 minutes for this hearing. This is a parole violation hearing, and I'll need to take testimony from you. Did you receive at least 7 days written notice of today's hearing?
Yes.
And did you receive your disclosure packet of information?
I did in January. I didn't get a new one because I was supposed to see you guys in January, but it got canceled because of
Right.
payments.
Right.
So that's the only one I got was back in January.
Okay, yeah, that's the information that I've been using as well.
Okay.
So did that look okay?
Yes.
All right. So let's just talk about really quickly where we're at. So you were placed in prison in 2017 for an aggravated burglary and a manslaughter. You were then paroled in 2023, so you spent about 6 years incarcerated. While you were out, let's see, so you got out in June and then you picked up new charges about 6 months later. You had a theft. You were convicted of a Class A. And then you also had distributing meth to other offenders in jail. You had about 8 ounces, I believe, of methamphetamine when you went into jail. And then your parole was, well, if it hasn't been revoked, I'm going to go ahead and take judicial notice that you had convictions. So the allegations in your parole violation include a theft is allegation 1, and you were convicted of a theft. Is that right?
Yes.
And then allegation 2 was that you were distributing a controlled substance in a drug-free zone. That's the prison. And you also were convicted of that. And we'll be talking about that today. So I don't need to take admissions. I'll just go ahead and take judicial notice that that happened and that you violated your parole. So I'm going to go ahead and revoke your parole. And let's go ahead and talk now about what happened. What was going on with your parole?
Well, I had been, like you said, I got, I came to prison when I was 19, did all that time. I had a hard time adjusting to society just because I just got sent home and I didn't have no structure. I just wasn't, it was hard for me to adjust,
Mhm.
really hard.
It sounded like you were about to say you didn't have any structure. Is that right?
Yeah.
Um, tell me what you needed. What sort of structure would have helped you?
I think I should have got elite sent into a rehab or some type of treatment to help me be in society again.
Yeah, because you were pretty young when
Yeah.
you got incarcerated, and that makes sense that you were having a difficult time adjusting. Okay. Um, did you go right back to drugs? What? Tell me about that. What?
No, I when I first got out, I was doing okay. I was living at home with my sister. I had a job, and then after a little bit, I started getting like um I want to say sort of depressed because it was too much for me at once.
Mhm.
And then I got
What was too much for you?
I felt like I just didn't know how to be back in society after so long. It got overwhelming. And then I also I got into a relationship. And that wasn't my goal, but I ended up getting into a relationship and then that became over too much
That
for me.
became what?
Too much for me too.
Okay.
Like I was planning on just focusing on myself and I feel like I veered away from my actual plans of life.
Tell me what your plans are.
My plans are to I want to be able to be in society, get a job. I want to finish school. I want to go into cosmetology, um, get a job. I just want to be able to live in society sober. And I I'm not sure if you got I have an acceptance letter for two different rehabs. I don't know if you got my second one for Liberty Addictions, but I did my intake for that and I
Mhm.
got approved.
Okay. And you think that'll help you be more successful, is to be in rehab?
Yes.
You completed Elevate earlier when you were incarcerated.
Yes.
How did that go?
Um,
I mean, I know you fell back into drug use, but tell me, did you feel like that was helpful? Did you learn anything?
yeah, I feel like it was helpful. It helped me. I think I did it too early in my sentence because I think I did it 2 years before I seen the board.
Yeah.
And I felt like maybe I learned and picked up the skills I needed, but then I sort of didn't know how to use them again because it was early on, like I said in my sentence, not close to when I got out.
Mhm. Tell me how you think you've been doing while you've been reincarcerated.
Um, I I've done okay and then I've done bad. I mean, I've gotten in trouble, but I've also put myself in school.
What are you doing with school?
Well, I was doing Davis Tech, but I kind of got in trouble and got kicked out.
I see violations there's one in July for refusing, resisting movement. It says you observe receiving items from an inmate and passing them to another inmate. And that's against housing rules. That was in July. And then in October, looks like the same thing. So is that what you are referring to? Is that what got you in trouble and got you kicked out of class?
Well, And then there was other ones. I don't know if they're in there. I'm sure you're gonna see them, but they're I got one for I got 2 A write-ups.
And what were those for?
Um, 'cause they were for both for substance abuse
Okay. When was that?
in December.
What was the substance?
Meth was my positive UA, and the other one was for paraphernalia found in the room.
What's causing you to continue to use?
Um, self-destruct. I'm upset with myself for bringing me back. Coming back. I know that's not the way, but
So, yeah, I mean, it is troubling that you have such serious charges, an aggravated burglary and manslaughter. You could be held, let's see, do you know your expiration date for those?
for my manslaughter is in 2032, and the other one is not the other one's a 5 to life.
So is that what you want, is to be incarcerated until? Well, your aggravated burglary, that was a first degree felony. The expiration date is 2117. Is that what you want in your life? Is to stay here,
No,
use methamphetamine? Because that's kind of where this is leading, right? When you get out, you got out after 6 years, and then you started using drugs again and stealing. Is that, I mean, if we let you out, that's what's gonna happen again? What's gonna be different?
really, I'm gonna choose different. I really want to go into rehab because I feel like that will help me go down the right road. And then I want to go after rehab. I'm gonna go into a sober living, go to school, and really focus on myself, not put a relationship before myself.
What support do you have
I
if
have
you're paroled?
my family, my sister, my brother, my mom and dad.
Can you live with them?
With my sister, yeah, I can go back home.
And if you go back home to your sisters, what, like, are you gonna be around people that are negative influences? So your plan would be to go move back with your sister. Where does she live?
Sandy.
Okay. And then you talked about going into rehab and sober living. You said you wanted to get a job as like go into cosmetology and live sober. Um, that all sounds good. You've got to start that here though.
You know,
If you're using here, you're going to be using outside, and then you're going to come right back and do this whole thing again. And then maybe you'd have to stay for a long, long time. And that's not what you want, right?
no.
So I'm looking at your assessment. Let's see, what do you think are some risk areas for you? You've been assessed as an intensive risk. What would you say are some risk areas?
My risk areas are companions.
Yep,
I think that's my biggest struggle, like I've said before.
yep, that's right. So how are you gonna change and be different with regard to that?
Um, like I said, I've always put others before myself, and I feel like I need to put myself in order to succeed. So I feel like I've started to put myself first. I mean, I know there's still some areas where I haven't, but I need to learn to love myself and put myself first, and I think that will help me with that area.
Yeah, and you're listed as very high for alcohol and drugs, very high risk. So you do need to work on that. And then also it says for pro-criminal attitude, orientation is very high. What do you think that means?
It means I like to commit crimes, right? I don't know how to use my time wisely in a positive way. I do it in a negative way.
Yeah. So one of the recommendations is that you complete a CBT course while you're incarcerated, or MRT. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
What is that? You tell me what.
Uh, pro, cognitive behavior therapy
Yeah.
is one of them.
Yeah, and what do you think you're going to learn from that? What do you think that that teaches?
It's gonna teach me how. I think it's gonna teach me how to do things not in a negative way, but in a positive way. Reinforce my um thinking, reinforce my ways of life and the way I do things.
So one of the things that I've heard from others is that it talks about this idea of playing the tape forward. What do you think that would mean, to play the tape forward?
Um, like tape, like as in like, the, like. What do you mean?
Yeah, so play the tape forward, that just kind of gets at the idea that you're starting to think about the consequences. You play things forward and think about, well, if that happens, then this is going to happen. And if that happens, then that would happen.
Kind of like
What does that mean to
a
you?
chain reaction,
Yeah, exactly.
a domino effect. Like if I do this, then I'm gonna go. So let's say I go back out and I start getting in trouble. I come back, then it's gonna it's affecting myself mostly, but it's also affecting my family,
Yeah.
and then it affects my freedom.
So getting out and starting to hang around negative influences or people that are using drugs, what's a likely impact of that?
Going back to criminal ways, coming back to prison.
Yeah, that you're gonna start using drugs, right?
Yes.
And if you start using drugs, what's gonna happen?
Using drugs, going back to my old ways.
You're gonna start distributing it, right? You're gonna start stealing things. And then if you do that, what's gonna happen?
Come back to prison.
Yeah. And then you could be here till 2117. So that's no way to live. Um, well, you have completed, like I said, you completed Elevate, you could do it. You know you can. And you know what you need to do, right?
Yes.
Um, Anything else the board should consider?
I think I've told you.
What's that?
I think I've said everything.
Okay. Did you complete high school?
Yes. I completed high
Did you
school
get that before you came? You finished that?
here, when I was here the first
Okay.
time.
See, you've shown that you could be successful. You completed high school. You completed Elevate. You have all the tools you need, right?
Yes.
You can be successful. Do you believe that?
I do. I
Good.
do believe that, and I think my biggest struggle is sometimes I don't believe in myself, but I know deep down that I can, and I just have to believe in myself in order to succeed.
Yeah, it's not easy to finish high school while incarcerated, but you did it. It's not easy to finish substance abuse treatment programs, but you did that as well. So you definitely have the ability. You just need to follow through, right?
Yes, I do.
You feel like you're going to be able to be successful when you get out?
Yes.
When's the last time you used drugs in here? You sounds like you got charges in December.
December.
Have you been clean since then?
Yes.
How has that experience been?
It's it's good. I mean, I'm happy. It's hard. I think when I'm using, I feel depressed. Um, I don't want to do nothing. I don't believe in myself, but now that I'm sober, I believe in myself. I have a different outlook in life, and I know that I can succeed and be different.
Yeah, you have a lot of family support, and not everybody has that. You're lucky.
Thank you.
And you have the tools to be successful. You just need to keep working at it, all right? Okay, anything else?
Nope.
All right, well, it's nice to meet you, and I wish you good luck,
Thank
and
you.
we'll go ahead and conclude today's hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, good luck.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think Utah decided? Well, the answer is they granted parole. She is getting released very, very soon, effective October 28th. 2025. Now remember, she only just had her parole revoked for her like 100-year sentence on March 11th, 2025. She had this parole and like revocation procedure happen on March 2025. So it's it's a slap on the wrist. Now don't worry, like you said, she needs to complete the CBT what is it? This is what she needs to do to get her parole. The behavioral therapy program, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT classes that are available, which include a minimum moral recognition therapy or MRP equivalent. So basically, she'll take a class in the next 6 months that will teach her to not be a complete psychopath. You know, that I always hear that you can learn these things. Don't worry, it's just a few programs. You sit in a room with 1,000 other inmates, and you know there's a person that gets up there and reads from a handbook that was probably made and created and printed in 1994 or something. But it's working. I promise you, the Utah public, you are safe. And look, you want to take a different, less cynical approach? Go ahead. Go ahead. She let's pretend she's not a psycho. Let's pretend that she does have good intentions. Let's pretend that she didn't just catch new felonies for distributing in a prison that's only just happened. Look at this. You guys, it's like we're tripping over here. Look at this. 21 through 2024 and 2/1/2024. I mean, like, while I okay, let's just pretend that she is a good person that's just being misled. Does she look ready to you to be released? Would it not be in her best interest if you kept her in prison a little bit longer, gave her some time to mature, gave her more programs, let her settle down? She is at risk of really screwing herself more. But this is Utah. You see, they have a problem. Their beds, their prisons are overflowing. So they just it's just like this assembly line thing, you know, like at a factory where it's just a conveyor belt that goes through. The problem is that at the end of the conveyor belt, it's not rehabilitation. At the end of the conveyor belt, it's rinse, repeat. Like we see it over and over again. The inmates come right back, and then they come through, and they come right back, and more so than any other state. And that's because in other states, it actually really depends. But they have and you know that in Louisiana where we cover, you cannot even have a parole hearing. It used to be 1 year. Now it's 3 years. You have to wait 3 years to have a parole hearing if you have had just one write-up. She's actually catching felonies, distributing narcotics in prison. Think about that. That's insane. And then Lady Holly, who did the research on this, she pointed out that, hey, that probably means she's in the gang. I mean, like, either she's in the gang and she's being forced to do work, or like something else. And I also want to point out, I have no idea. I'm like Dr. Grande says, I'm not diagnosing anyone. I'm only speculating on a situation like this. But when I call her like psychopathic, right? There's no proof. We don't know. Maybe she is just going through a hard time. But let's keep in mind that she took a life not so long ago, or her involvement in taking a life. And they really, you know, it's interesting because in so many other states, they don't care whether you pull the trigger or not. It's like you're going in a home invasion, you're robbing someone, and they die. Everyone involved will get the same sentence, and not in Utah. Not at all. Actually, her 100-year sentence is not for the killing of a man, but it's for, let me share it with you, but it's for the robbery. Look at this. It's really crazy. Manslaughter, second degree, is a 1 to 15-year sentence in Utah. Okay, you'll get 1 to 15 years. But the aggravated burglary, that's 5 to 100 years. Yes, yes, yes. And then the attempted distribution, which is a recent felony, that is 0 to 15 years. And the possession with intent to distribute, 0 to 5. So in her young life, she has a bajillion years. 2132 is her 2132, 100 years. I don't know. It's, again, maybe we're the ones that don't know what we're talking about. But the thing is, we see this all the time in Utah. It does not benefit anybody. Now, we can go over some of the cases of this crime. Thank you again, lady. Here's our lovely prince and princess. 2017, to plead in gang-related killing. November 10, 2017, a man and a woman accused of murder in a burglary and killing of parole pled guilty to reduced charges. Both 19 years old have pled guilty to aggravated burglary, first-degree felony, and manslaughter. I don't know how does it's so funny that they call it manslaughter. It's like Marshall previously had been charged with aggravated murder and aggravated burglary, both first-degree felonies with obstruction of justice. Hernandez was originally charged with murder and aggravated robbery, both first-degree felonies, obstruction of justice, second degree, and use or possession of paraphernalia, a misdemeanor. Marshall, blah, blah, blah. The alleged gunman and Gordon were charged in 2017 death. Police say the incident was gang-related. According to probable cause statement, the group went to get a backpack Hernandez said was hers and to rob the residence of a cash box. So she's even more of an instigator than I thought. She's like, they had my backpack. Marshall said that the group knocked on the front door, then attempted to force it open, but were not successful. They then went to the back door, forced it open. After multiple shots were fired, they returned to the vehicle. Even the way it's written, it's like, not that they fired the shots. It's like they went into the back door and then just shots were fired. Somehow shots were fired. A friend drove Ramirez to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. Also again here, they drove him to the hospital. Whoops, he died. Whoopsies. Oh man. Now, if you're curious what happened to the co-defendants, let's see. Lady Holly did think about that. So we have it here. So the co-defendant. Also, to add more context, she was paroled on June 13, 2023, and it only took until February 1st, 2024 for her to get her first warrant, by the way. That's how long she lasted out there. So Braden, who was involved as a co-defendant, he was granted parole on 4/2/2024, and he's getting paroled on October 14, 2025. Jesse, who was the one who fired the bullet, has a parole hearing scheduled 8/2029, but Holly pointed out, now let me just share the screen. These are Holly's notes. Pointed out that he looks like he got an assault by prisoner along the way, which is very common in Utah. We see that all the time. We see people serving longer sentences for the felonies they catch in prison than what got them there. That's common. And there you have it. I don't know. I didn't think she had any accountability. Lady Holly has in the notes that it's just like she's like playing it off, like, oh, and whether she's playing that off or whether it's intentional, either way, it's inappropriate. You're not taking this seriously. It's like you need some more time to do programs. Getting her out now because she takes one bloody program about recognition therapy is insane. Everybody without a PhD, everybody who doesn't work in government can see that this is not going to work out well for her. But what do we know? We're just Mandalorians. Anyways, with that, I'll let you go.
You have such serious charges, an aggravated burglary and manslaughter. You could be held, let's see, do you know your expiration date for those?
for my manslaughter is in 2032, and the other one is the other one's a 5 to life.
So is that what you want, is to be incarcerated until? Well, your aggravated burglary, that was a first-degree felony. The expiration date is 2117. Is that what you want in your life? Is to stay here